Don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. Congress takes over negotiating. Sell America fast because you're going to go busted. You don't. I just saw it today. A couple of your congressmen said, I think we should get involved in the negotiation of the tariffs. Oh, that's what I need. I need some guy telling me how to negotiate. I tell you, the happiest people in the world would be China. They wouldn't be paying 104%. I tell you, they'd be paying no percent. We'd be paying them 104%. That's the beauties. These guys, we got to be careful. And even the concept of it hurts your negotiation. When they see a little story like that, the other side, it hurts your negotiation. And then the fake news wants to build it up, and it has no chance anyway. But we have to remain united.
And there wasn't a moment during that self-serving rant where Donald Trump even thought about the effects his tariffs are having on regular Americans. It was all about him. All he cares about are his fantasy stories of someone kissing his ass while ignoring what it's doing to people's lives.
With these 104% tariffs that went into effect, we think that China is going to have to pay for it, but it tells a story of a special needs toy importer. And when the tariffs went into effect at midnight, his tariff, he's been paying a tariff because he gets stuff from China, $26,000 a year. His tariff bill went from $26,000 at midnight to $346,000. And that's money he's going to have to come out of his pocket. It sounds like he's going to have to go ahead and close down part of his business. He tried to make the toys in the United States, but the tariff on that, his most popular item, went from $0 to $17 at midnight. And what he told the New York Post is people don't understand the tariff situation. They think just foreign countries are paying for the tariffs. That's not true. Half of the tariffs are being paid for by U.S.-based companies. Yeah. So when you look at the big numbers and they look good, just remember that according to this guy, half of the small businesses and half of the tariffs are being paid by Americans.
The rest of the Fox and Friends panel was thinking, how are we supposed to fulfill the president's dream of having his ass kissed by us when this guy Ducey keeps telling stories of reality? Oh, they still tried.
Well, I'll say this. I'm still holding back judgment on this because I feel like we may be missing something here. And the way I look at it is I have two groups of friends. I have my more wealthy friends, the ones that are on Wall Street and all that. And then I have my friends that are in the farming community, middle class. They're cheering it on. Yeah. Meanwhile, my friends that are more rich and wealthy are ticked off. Huh. And so look, I watched the president yesterday, even with those miners yesterday, and they're cheering him on as well. Sure. I think the elites have gotten used to a certain lifestyle and what we're invested in the market and all that. But he's fighting for the little guy right now. So I think we may just want to hold on and see what happens.
To your point, Steve, to your toy maker, it may be challenging at times and in a moment of drastic overdue change.
Well, the problem is, like that guy in Idaho, he might have to go out of business.
Well,
and so that's why it's so important that
you reconfigure all the trade.
In order to defend these obviously destructive policies, these guys are willing to call small business owners that make toys for special needs kids elites that Trump is fighting against, while Kilmeade dismissed his predicament by saying people go out of business every day. It's amazing how one guy's stupidity and ego can force this party that always claimed to champion small business to suddenly not give a damn when Trump policies give two middle fingers to them. But the Republican battle over reality is causing some trusted conservatives to start jumping ship.
Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned, Larry. I don't like taxes, and I don't want more of them. I also think that if you tax something, you get less of it. And I don't want less trade. I want more trade. There's a fundamental argument we have to have in this country. Is trade good or bad? The president and his counselors seem to think that in trade, someone gets ripped off. The truth of the matter is this, that all trade is mutually beneficial, and really the U.S. doesn't trade with China. You trade with Walmart. So when I go to Walmart, if I pay $10 for a shirt, I want that shirt and they want my $10, and we both go away from the deal having succeeded. We mutually benefited. That's the only reason trade happens. And then if you add it all up and say, oh, China's ripping us off, it makes no sense. Trade deficits are not real accounting. It's a fake accounting, and it doesn't mean anything. What means something is, if you look at trade deficits in proportional to prosperity, the higher the trade deficits, the more prosperity. The lower the trade deficits, the less prosperity. We get a reduction in trade deficits when we go into a recession. We get an expansion of trade deficits when we're in a boom. So really nothing about a trade deficit gives any real useful instruction to the economy.
While Rand Paul is out voicing his opposition based on the effects of Trump's policies are having on consumers, we still have to take note that he and a few others weren't out saying this while Trump was on the campaign trail, literally claiming that doing this would result in some kind of golden era.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff. And it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations firm. The higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the country.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many.
No, it will go quickly.
Years.
Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're going to come in.
You look at the American economy, 40 million jobs rely on trade. It accounts for 27% of GDP.
Okay.
If you cut that off, that's also going to have an effect on many business people here.
Yeah.
Tariffs also have another side. Isn't that something that you have to acknowledge?
No.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already at the moment.
There are no tariffs. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States and you don't have any tariffs.
You're going to basically stop trade with China. You're talking about 60% on that, 60% tariffs on that. You're talking, as you said, 100, 200% on things you don't really like. You're also talking about 10, 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative.
What about consumers? People out there.
They're going to be the biggest beneficiaries.
Yeah, critics say your tariffs will end up being like a national sales tax.
Nope. The countries will pay.
If you have America at the moment has $3 trillion worth of imports, you're going to add tariffs to every single one of them. That is going to push up the cost for all those people who want to buy foreign goods.
No. What's going to happen?
Simple mathematics, President Trump.
It's not. Yeah, it is, but not the way you figured. I was always very good at mathematics.
He was never right. And anyone that challenged his obvious cluelessness was labeled a sufferer of Trump derangement syndrome for clearly talking about all the holes in his arguments. So now that he's been proven wrong, the next best step is to never believe anything else he says that's been proven wrong by people that know more than he does. Remember these sufferers of Trump derangement syndrome?
The former president has a set of tariffs that are incredibly sweeping and the opposite of targeted. On 60% tariff on everything from China and 10% on all imports. Now, let's stop calling it a tariff. Let's call it a tax. It is a tax on consumer spending that will hit middle-class families and have exactly the opposite effect on inflation of everything we've talked about so far in this president's agenda.
There were a whole bunch of these studies, like from really respected people, different political leanings, that basically all found that the tariffs were paid either mostly or entirely by Americans. They were passed along to American businesses and or American consumers.
Now that what thinking people said is actually coming true, diehard supporters' coping mechanisms have shifted to saying Americans are okay with prices going up, that everyone needs to sacrifice things like we did with the war effort in the 1940s, or straight up gaslighting with the claim that consumers aren't paying more. Their entire reality is a complete mess, and the rest of the world is forced to live through it. The pretzels that they're twisting themselves into even has conservatives like Eric Erickson pulling his hair out too.
I am so unbelievably frustrated with the level of intellectual dishonesty of so many people on the right. When I see these guys out there who, when the stock market fell when Joe Biden was president by 1% or 2%, blasting Joe Biden, and now the stock market is back to where it was in 2023. They're like, it's no big deal. It's all digital. It's all fake. Screw your retirement. You don't need to retire anyway. This is good for us. The level of mendacity and dishonesty, the number of people who circulated a Larry Fink from BlackRock today, quote, saying it was a buying opportunity, and they deleted the part that it's a buying opportunity after he expects the stock market to fall another 20% because we're in a recession and it's going to get worse. I find that level of mendacity and lying and dishonesty to be utterly appalling, particularly among people you would think would show a modicum of intellectual honesty just for the sake of consistency, but they've got no shame. It's propaganda. In fact, what I suspect is going to happen is we are going to have a recession, and I suspect when we get into the recession and it becomes real and apparent, people who said we're not going to have a recession will deny that the recession is because of the tariffs. Everything that's happening is predictable, and when those predictions happen, people instead decide it's some sort of conspiracy. It's some sort of great conspiracy. The globalists are conspiring to hurt Donald Trump. No. What's happening and playing out is exactly what everyone predicted would play out if you imposed tariffs. It's not some sort of conspiracy.